music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Going behind the scenes with Hollywood's power players. Real Hollywood Live with Ben and Reba. Starts now.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Well, everybody, welcome to Real Hollywood Live. I'm Ben.
I'm Reba.
And we're here on the UBN radio station, Channel 1, which happens every Tuesday.
At 1 o'clock.
Which is now. So, Reba, who are we going to be talking to today?
I'm not going to tell you who we're talking to today. I'm going to surprise you. I want to just talk to you because I want to talk about networking. I am from the studio side of the world, and you're from that indie side.
Yep.
And I wonder, do indie people network?
They do. When I came down here in 2005, young, naive, I came from the live production world, and I said, to this attorney I was introduced to, I said, I'm here, I'm going to make scripted TV and film. He said, well, you kind of have to choose. You can't do both. I said, well, there's some guy named Jerry Bruckheimer who's doing both. I don't see why I can't either. He's like, well, he's a little bit more experienced than you. I said, okay. He's like, well, you've got 3 strikes. You are not a writing producer. You don't have $100 million. And you don't live here to network every day. He's like, you could fix one of those. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have stayed in the Silicon Valley where I might have found $100 million and it would have been a much faster path. But I came here and I started networking. I knew 2 people when I moved to Hollywood. And so every single day I woke up and made it kind of my job to be out there meeting every single person that I wanted to learn from, wanted to work with, wanted to become. And that helped lead to where I went.
Well, I got to Hollywood I came in 1982 and I ran home to San Diego. And I came back in 83. Hollywood really scared me. I was coming off of winning an Emmy and getting 18 rejections to try to get another television show. And I was totally intimidated by Hollywood. And so when I came up, my idea of networking was to go to any seminar that there were people in the film industry. Mm-hmm. And I would, I don't even think I had cards, but they had cards. So I collected cards. And then somebody told me about a group called the Woman's Underground. These were women who all were working in the studio system, but they were at the bottom. They were very low entry. I mean, they were higher than assistants and lower than directors. Okay. And one day, and I went. And
what did you say to them?
I stood up and cried and said, I'm really good at what I do, and I can't get one person from a studio to take my call. When I said that, I already had my own television network in place of 55 television stations willing to take the movie star interviews that I wasn't getting from the studios.
Wow.
And the voice in the back said, I still know this lady, by the way, said, find somebody that works in the division you want to go to in the studio system. And I knew one guy that I had stayed in touch with for all these years when I worked for CBS. He ran the crews when I did the junkets. And we just called each other occasionally, how are you, this and that. I mean, he was in LA, I was in San Diego. And I called him up and I said, let's have lunch. And I said to him, I'd like to partner on this idea. It's called video publicity. You get, wherever you're getting a trailer, get me a movie star interview. And he did, in 3 weeks. That's opened my eyes that you really have to know somebody.
It is, but along the way, you can develop those relationships. And how many no's did it take before you got to that one yes, would you say?
I don't have enough fingers and toes.
I mean, if I were to estimate, it's probably in the range of less than 1% of all the people I met, all the meetings I had that converted. And in some cases, the conversion came 8 or 9 years later when the person who I'd got to know who was just starting now is sitting in a senior role, but we've kept up all these years. So you have to be in it for the long haul, that's for sure.
But it's also scary. It's really scary to do it because it is not an easy town to break into. I know we interview a lot of actors and they get that big break and they think it's going to last forever, and it really doesn't unless they work at it.
Well, you know what? Today we have a special guest who not only is he a producer and a writer, but he also...
Is lucky? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
No,
mean to
not
say
only
that.
lucky. He's one of the best networkers I know. In fact, he's made a business of that on the side in multiple cities across America.
Well, we're going to introduce you to Joel Eisenberg, and he is an in-demand writer, producer, and published author, which I'm jealous of. I'm a published author too, but his is in demand. Okay. And his new fantasy book, I shall lift it up and tell you, is called The Chronicles of Ara.
Reba wrote a fantasy book too, but it's more of the 50 Shades of Grey type of fantasy.
Can I borrow it?
It is. I did sleep with a lot of men to get to the man I finally married.
Oh,
but that's
do
another story.
tell. You're more interesting than I am.
She figured that kissing frogs could be a slow process. She would just go a little bit farther.
I'm going to turn right. I want
Ben, we'll talk about it after. You got me curious.
Joel
Yes.
Eisenberg. I want to welcome you with a straight phrase to real live, Hollywood.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's okay. Ed Asner was very interested to know more about the other book too.
Ed and I are also getting together after. We're going to compare notes.
Okay, good.
Okay, this is the question, my darling. In
Yes,
doing
ma'am.
the research, I found that you were a special ed teacher, and I want to know how you go from, not that there's anything wrong with it, I think it's a blessed job, but to become an in-demand producer, writer in the toughest town. I don't care what they say in that song in New York. Hollywood is the toughest town to make it. So how'd you do it?
Well, here's the deal. I taught special ed. That enabled me to handle any personality I ran into in Hollywood.
I was going to say, which one was more difficult?
Here's the deal. I mean, basically what we're looking at is I taught severely emotionally disturbed kids in New York, gang kids, drug abusers, alcoholics, and so on and so forth.
That sounds like Hollywood.
Exactly. So every difficult personality in a film set, forget it. We're best friends. At the end of the day, seriously, what was tougher? Honestly, dealing with those kids was tougher. Was making it in Hollywood incredibly tough? Yeah, that was ridiculous. You talk about networking. Oh, I have stories. I want to know a little bit more about you, Reba, but I have stories as well.
But the thing is,
So that's why he's a good networker. He likes to ask questions about you.
I can't believe that I read this, and I'm sure some publicist wrote this about you, but you sent blind emails to very famous people.
Yes, I did.
First of all, how in the world did you find the email addresses? I don't know how to find email addresses.
Okay, about 12 years ago, I wrote a book called How to Survive a Day Job. And the only way that book I felt was going to make a difference was if I had people that were public giving their advice to creative people about how they made it in a very competitive industry. So what I did is I just wrote down a list of people I wanted to reach. I knew nobody at the time, and I wanted to see if they'd be interested in interviewing. So I cornered people in bookstores. As far as the emails, in that list, there were people that had websites. So I went on their websites, and I wanted to see if there was contact information. Within these contacts on the contact page on the websites, what happens is you'll hit some assistance, but then a lot of these people will also answer their own email. So I started getting responses, and I'm like, this is cool. So I had one interview, and then I'll send out another email. I'll say, well, yesterday I interviewed this person for the book, and now I'm reaching out to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I got their interview. The following day, I emailed 2 or 3 more. Well, so far for this book, I have this one and this one. And before I knew it, I had 75.
So you did the old guilt by association.
Damn right. It's any sort of manipulation that I could have done being a Brooklyn, New York native, and happily so. Any street, no, I'm exaggerating. It's whatever it is. I mean, I tried to basically leverage their interest. I was a nobody. They didn't know me. I could have been anybody off the street, and frankly, I was. So I needed to have something where I had credibility. So whenever I got an interview, that went into my cover letter.
I just want to ask, where did all this lead to? I mean, it led to the book, but did the book lead to anything?
Yeah, it's interesting because what happened is I signed a Comic-Con for 3 years in a row, always sold out.
On how to get a day job?
How to get a day job, because the full title, which was unwieldy at the time, it was a very piss-poor, pardon my French, attempt at branding. It was called Aunt Bessie's How to Survive a Day Job While Pursuing the Creative Life. That was the full title of that book. But it was the contents that were in the book that were important. And we had contributions from Stephen King and Clive Barker and Tom Cruise and this and that, Larry Hagman, Brad Meltzer. And how did I basically leverage that for myself? Well, I stayed in contact with as many of these people as I could. So all of a sudden, I basically had 75 mentors in a box. But, it was between two covers, not exactly a box. And
Which
by
that's
staying in
trademarked, mentor in a box.
Mentor in a
TM.
box, exactly. And basically built up my contact list from there, and these people knew other people they wanted to introduce me with, and then I wasn't beyond asking for favors when I needed them, because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't.
You mean that old saying, if you don't ask, you don't get?
Exactly.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But I'm still curious. I can understand I know you're going to Comic-Con on Thursday to sign this.
Yes.
The Chronicles of Ara. That makes sense for Comic-Con. Why would the other book make sense for... I just don't understand. I thought you had to dress up and be in fantasy to do Comic-Con.
As much as I wanted to wear my Mr. Spock ears or my Darth Vader outfit, I didn't. What happened was, again, in the book, you have to understand, the makeup of Comic-Con, despite the cliche, not everybody walks around in costume. I mean, you'd fool yourself if you watched that one Entourage episode and felt that was what it was if you hadn't been there before. The reality is so many of these people are looking to begin their own creative careers. So you have artists, you have actors, and so on and so on. There is no better place on the planet today if you are a pop culture geek or someone interested in pop culture looking to make a career in the field than going to Comic-Con. There's 135,000 people every year.
Didn't know that. So I want to ask you about the Chronicles of, do I say it right, Ara?
Yeah, and I was actually going to compliment you on that because I get area. It's Ara.
Thank you.
Mazel tov.
8 volumes? You look like an ordinary guy. Where does all this fantasy, crazy stuff come from?
Okay.
Well, the 8 books clearly came from the Hanukkah menorah.
Exactly right. Exactly. The man actually is not that far off.
Good for you.
Not that far off, because when I decided initially how many books it was going to be, I wanted a biblical reference.
Okay.
And the number 8, and I'm not religious, not in the slightest. The number 8 meant rebirth. I said, yeah, that's it, because this book takes us to the end of the world and how we scale back.
I want more.
Okay, I'll give you more. When I was a special education teacher, you want to know one of the bigger inspirations? Again, I'm from Brooklyn. You have to understand the personality. I'm a little ADD, probably a lot ADD. Sitting in front of my computer allows me to focus. When I was teaching a student who was a straight-A student, who was the granddaughter of 2 Holocaust survivors, was wearing a Marilyn Manson t-shirt. The principal comes into the room and asks if I could speak to her. Outside in the hallway, she says, I want her to take her t-shirt and turn it inside out. I had a hard time with that. And so Brooklyn happens, every now and again. I didn't agree with it because the student was straight A. Okay, she was a straight A student. She was in a special ed class because she had some behavior difficulties, right? But you need to teach and work with students like this in their own modality. She was expressing herself. She was very artistic, very creative. I had an issue with it. Long and the short is she turned her t-shirt inside out. I wasn't going to cause any sort of scene. And I wound up quitting that job after another week.
And you quit, and you had no place to go. So you went to your typewriter or your computer where you felt safe?
Yeah.
And started to write?
Yeah, what happened was, remember the old Hollywood creative directories?
Yeah.
I said, okay, this is now an opportunity. I'm going to go as far as I need to in the Hollywood creative directory and cold call as many people as I need to try to get a job.
So did you start with Marilyn Manson?
I didn't. But what I did do, it's funny, because the way this all sort of plays out, there's another book in this. I finally hit on somebody who asks me, he takes me seriously. He didn't get rid of me right away. He goes, well, you sound like somebody who's fairly articulate and, you seem like you have some confidence. Have you ever directed before? I said, no. He goes, would you consider it? I said, well, I am a writer. I'm not really a director. Okay, you didn't answer the question. Would you consider it? I'd consider it. What do you have? What are we talking? He goes, well, I always wanted to remake The Maltese Falcon. So here I am now, sitting in my living room, in my underwear, not to give anybody a graphic, calling from the Hollywood Creative Directory. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, my first Hollywood gig is going to be rewriting The Maltese Falcon. This is interesting. So I go, so how does this work? He goes, well, what I'm looking at specifically is we redo the Falcon, but we add 8 gratuitous nude scenes for the foreign markets. Germany wants this one wants this, that one wants this. We call it Sweet Evil Part 2, a sequel to Sweet Evil Part 1, which is one of my bigger selling movies. So I went from here to here, but I accepted it. Now I said, okay, so this is a paying gig, right? And he goes, well, of course. I go, what's the budget that you're looking at? He goes, $5,000. I said, $5,000. He goes, and whatever you have left is your writing fee. Oh. That was my first gig, and it is unfortunately on my IMDb.
Wait,
Sweet
did
Evil
you
2.
actually do it?
I wrote it, and I hired another director for $500.
Did you find creative ways to get her to take off her clothes 8 different ways?
I wasn't the director. I wrote the script, and that was it for me. I didn't give a damn, to be honest. I had to pay my dues somehow.
Was there explosions too? Because that really helps in foreign sales also.
There weren't any explosions, but now as I look back, I think, damn, I missed an opportunity.
See, I keep wanting to meet the person who went to like Dollar Rent a Car, got the car, took the full insurance, and went and made a movie. Had it towed back into the lot and say, I don't know what happened, but we've got full coverage.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
But you didn't answer my question
about how I went from A to Z wrote the book.
No, but it's all fantasy.
Yes.
Am I right? I mean, the pictures look like that.
Here's the thing. When I was a kid, and I would assume many listening to the show now could basically relate to this. When I was a kid, instead of playing football and baseball, I was the guy who was writing. I was the guy who was writing short stories. I was writing stuff like the crew of the Starship Enterprise teams up with the $6 Million Man to go down and save the world from the Planet of the Apes. Okay? Why not?
I totally understand you now.
So what happened was I just basically carried that over. When I saw Star Wars for the first time at 13, at the end, after the medal ceremony, true story, my family walked out, left. I was going to meet them in the lobby. My legs were totally numb. The weirdest thing, I was 13 years old. It was like the closest I ever came to any sort of religious experience.
How did you get it published? I mean, you've got balls. It's pretty obvious that you go after whatever it is that you think you want or you want. How in the world did you get this published?
Balls.
Look at him. The less hair you have, the more head you get.
Exactly. I used this one somewhere else. I'm only 21. This is the brutal reality of Hollywood right
now.
How did I get it published? I actually got lucky. My agent wanted me to send this series to a major. He thought it was that good. And the long and the short is I didn't. I wanted control. And I knew that, for the kid who sat in his room and wrote stories and let his imagination run wild as opposed to playing sports, that same kid all these years later needed that same kind of creative control. So I went with an independent company, I submitted, and they accepted it.
And also I have to say, like on the agent side, because that's a big step too, like a lot of people want an agent, but you're an independent, but I saw that you're represented by CAA.
Yes.
So how'd
you get that?
Did they come to you or did you go to them?
It was a little bit of both. The reality is I was one of these guys that was doing agent dances for years. I went from this one to this one to this one, and I have a real issue with people talking and not delivering, or people talking. And I have a saying, pardon my French, but when I speak to filmmakers around the country, I always begin the same way. It's all bullshit until the check clears. Okay? And that's my general philosophy on all of this stuff. With the agents specifically, I had a project that they were very interested in, and they wanted to sell it. And they're making all of these overtures towards me, CAA. I won't mention the project because it's not done yet. But what I told them point blank is I said, well, I tell you what, there are advantages to me, obviously, being repped by CAA. Why don't you sign me as a writer-producer, and then we'll talk about what you want. He goes, the paperwork will be in the mail in a week.
And was it?
Yes.
Ooh. Tell me about, what I want to say this one, Mirkwood?
Okay, Mirkwood, this is an interesting story, actually. Mirkwood was written, it was a novel, a self-published novel written by a guy named Steve Hillard, whose name is on the cover of the Chronicles of Ara as well as co-author and co-creator. Mirkwood was a book about J.R.R. Tolkien. There was a big lawsuit threatened by the Tolkien estate. This is all public knowledge. I could talk about this. The long and the short is they felt that they should not portray, or Tolkien should not be portrayed in a fictional book. Steve was a former attorney, and he cited First Amendment rights, and the Tolkien estate settled because there really was nowhere to go. Mirkwood was published. About a year and a half later, Steve came to the Great American Pitch Fest, where I was taking pitches, my company at the time, EMO Films, and he pitched this particular book as a film. I read the book, and I said, we can go further. Let's form a partnership, and ultimately what resulted is that which... Again, it's all BS until the check clears, but there is a television, I'll just say possibility until it's signed. It's nothing. But if it's signed, there is a network that has been dealing numbers with CAA to turn this into a miniseries.
And what happens to Peter Jackson and his Hobbit and his Lord of the Rings?
He retires very happy. Nothing happens because this
he doesn't get a piece of this because...
No, this does not encroach on any intellectual property. We use Tolkien as a character. We do not use hobbits or any of this.
How is Tolkien? What kind of guy is he? Just give me I don't want to know the whole thing. Just give me one sentence if you were to describe this.
Genius. Tolkien, you have to understand, one of the themes of the Chronicles of Aura is artistic influence and artistic creation, and how artistry basically builds cultures and builds worlds. And that little kid in me starts asking a bunch of provocative questions. Is the Bible literature only? And if so, wouldn't that show the power of the written word? And on and on and on. So we get into things like that. And what I did is I had a sort of a theory that those writers who sort of trolled their own primality more than most, their own darker human nature, like Tolkien, like Poe, like H.P. Lovecraft, and on, they had more answers than most of the rest of us. So I followed them, sort of fictionalizing it, but I followed them on their artistic careers where they eventually wrote their own most influential works.
Well, unfortunately, I think we're going to have you come back. But
no, we have 3 minutes. Okay.
We do? Okay, good. We got time for one more, and then we've got some really special giveaways.
I know, but this is a guy with a mouth, and I want to put him on the spot.
Go for it.
Okay.
Balls, not a mouth, balls. You said it, not me.
Yes.
Okay.
She's got the mouth.
Best advice you were ever given?
Oh, that's a great question. I can tell you exactly what it is. From that amazing tome, Aunt Bessie's How to Survive a Day Job While Pursuing the Creative Life, Clive Barker, who wrote Hellraiser and, Lord of Illusions and all, Clive Barker is just brilliant as far as I'm concerned. And I interviewed him for the book. And he gave me the best piece of advice I ever got. Never pause and consider how impossible your task is. Just do it. So for anybody in the filmmaking community, in Ben's independent filmmaking community especially, if you have to make a phone call to an agent, pick up the phone. Don't sit there and fret about it for 20 minutes trying to figure out what to say. Just do it.
And so is that the advice you give?
100%. And I give that credit to Clive. And I always say that when I speak. I speak around the country to independent filmmakers and other artistic creators, and that was the best piece of advice I ever got.
I have one more, because this really will affect me. When nobody wanted you, why didn't you give up?
Because I can't. There's really no other way to answer it, because I'd be massaging and romancing the answer. I don't have quit in me. I don't. And believe me, financially and everything else, everything that everybody suffers, oh boy, I've been there. I have stories. I mean, there were times I didn't know if I'd be, eating crumbs off the street. Okay. And then more than that, never thought I'd get married, because I was just too much of a hard ass. But I just don't have quit in me. So here's what I have to say as far as advice. If you feel, to anybody, studio filmmaker, independent filmmaker, if you feel that you have a voice, never be silenced. Nobody is any better than you. Period. If you have that voice, use it. Don't let any bully or anybody shut you down. Just move forward.
Well, with that, you can absolutely follow Joel on Twitter at Joel _Eisenberg. Follow the Chronicles of Aura as well as on Facebook. And you can find the book and the whole series. Let's see, we've got Chronicles of Aura Creation, which is available on Amazon.com, and it's incognitobooks.com, correct?
Yes.
Which is like incognito, but with an R, incognito. Also be sure to look for the next books, which are released this year, The Lost Chronicles of Aura Perdition in September, and The Lost Chronicles of Aura, the Mirkwood Codex, which will be released in November. Finally, we're very lucky to be able to give away a couple copies to
Autographed.
listeners. Exactly. Oh, absolutely.
I put a gun to his head. That's how we got it autographed. But
You can't say that online. That's bullying.
Oh, sorry.
But to do that, go to, is it on your site? It's on rebamerrill.com?
Is it? Ooh.
Let's see. Exactly. So,
Yes.
thank you. Ignore the man behind the curtain. Actually, in this case, the woman. It's at rebamerrill.com/The Chronicles of Aura.
Can I say one thing real
Yeah,
quick?
please.
Go ahead.
Give a
Okay.
plug.
I don't drink, guys, but you know what? Conundrum wine is just the best.
Oh,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'd like to thank our awesome sponsors, Conundrum Red, Conundrum White. You can find them anywhere. Anywhere that doesn't carry them is not worth frequenting anyways. Also, if you want to have classic stemware and barware, go to barkeepersilverlake.com.
Because they did the glasses in Mad Men, my kind of guys.
Exactly.
There you go.
We'll be right back. Thank you. Conundrum has been turning winemaking on its head for 25 years. Conundrum White is the original white wine blend from California. Pair this exotic, versatile wine with everything from Asian cuisine to tacos. Conundrum Red is rich, full-flavored, and balanced, the perfect complement to dishes like pasta pomodoro, fajitas, and barbecue. Drink it slightly chilled, perfect for summer. You'll find Conundrum Red and White wines at your favorite restaurants, wine shops, or supermarket. Go to WagnerFamilyOfWine.com. Again, that's WagnerFamilyOfWine.com. Find your wine, find your adventure.
Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches is Reba Merrill's intriguing look at hidden Hollywood. Find out what movie stars are really like in this behind-the-scenes Hollywood tell-all. The story of Reba's extraordinary life interwoven with an insider's look at achieving fame and success in the entertainment industry. A must-read. Buy Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches at rebamerrill.com, amazon.com, or ask for it at fine bookstores. Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches. You'll love it.
Barkeeper in Silver Lake has the finest cocktail shakers and vintage glassware and barware from the mid-century to new. And let's not forget about Barkeeper's unique spirits, 150 different kinds of bitters, and their unique gifts. In fact, Barkeeper provided a lot of the vintage barware for Mad Men. BarkeeperSilverLake.com. Don't wait to visit their store or their website at BarkeeperSilverLake.com. It's your very own Barkeeper catalog for unique gifts.
Going behind the scenes with Hollywood's power players. Real Hollywood Live with Ben and Reba. Starts now.
A very special guest in the studio right now because Outfest is ready to open on Thursday, July 9th. I never know calendars, but I'm so excited about this. And it's an organization that promotes LGBT, and I think it's at a time right now where everybody seems to know what's going on. And so
Been in the news a little bit lately.
before we introduce our guest, we're going to play a trailer from Outfest.
I'm gay.
What?
Historic.
Amazing.
Women like that.
It is.
What is that, honey?
I'm giving you my sexy look.
What are you?
We're ordinary people, not rebels. Why do you want a baby so much?
I've never been as open as I am with you.
Kind of like you a lot.
More than a film festival. It's a happening. And I'd like to welcome the senior programmer of Outfest. Outfest LA. I got to say that right because they must have Outfests all over the place. Alonso Duralde.
Thank you.
73 apples.
Is there an Outfest outside of LA that matters?
Well, actually, Outfest is the organization. Outfest Los Angeles is the festival that we do in July. But we're a year-round organization. We do a monthly screening series called Outfest West Hollywood. We have Outfest Forward, which is a series of educational programs for filmmakers. There's, but Outfest, the organization, is based here in LA.
Okay, so how'd you get the job? Do you have to be gay to get the job?
Well, you don't have to. I'd say it helps in this case. No, we don't discriminate. We have straight people that work for us, and the whole
I think they're called
spectrum.
fag hags.
I prefer Fairy Princess. But,
Fairy Princess, okay.
Or Fruit Fly is a good one, too.
Oh, that's good. I hadn't heard that.
I have been working at Outfest in various capacities, I think like 7 or 8 years now. I used to cover them when I was a journalist. But yeah, so I've been full-time year-round for a couple of years now.
And when you were a journalist, sorry, I don't know that part of your career, but were you critiquing movies? Or?
Well, at the time, I was arts and entertainment editor at the Advocate from 2000 to 2006. So we would cover Outfest along with all the other queer film festivals that took place around the country. I am still a film critic, actually, but because I also work at Outfest, I have to recuse myself from any of our.
Well, I was going to say, being a being a programmer, how does that coincide with also being a critic, where your job is in essence to kind of pick it apart?
Well, I mean, ideally, I think, and you see a lot of film critics who sort of have one foot in the festival world. I mean, our job is to sort of, look at movies and figure out what works and what doesn't. So, if anything else, I'd say that if it passes muster with me or with somebody else who's a film critic, that means that it's a good movie. I like to think.
I believe in it. Like we've followed that judgment.
Yeah, and I mean, programmers who aren't critics are still applying a lot of the same, the same critical eye to a film. Like, does it do what it sets out to do? Is it effective? Is it successful? Mm-hmm. And that's what programming is. You have a lot of films to choose from, and you want to pick out the best ones to share with an audience.
Well, on that note, I have to bring it up early before we lose him.
Okay.
You have a documentary about Tab Hunter.
Yes.
Did it meet your criteria?
It's a great movie, yeah, and it's a fascinating story.
The fruit fly.
and he's going to turn 84 the day that we screen the film, so we're having a birthday cake and everything.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I dated him.
Wow.
When I first came to Hollywood, I didn't know. I didn't understand this. I dated him and Alan Glazer.
Oh, okay.
He knows what I'm saying.
They're a lovely couple.
I had no idea.
That'll be the next episode.
I had no idea that Tab was gay. I just was in such awe that I was looking.
Thought he had a very close friend that liked to be there through everything.
I sat in the middle.
Oh no, Tab, they're great. I've gotten to know Alan somewhat in working on the showing this film in the festival, and he's terrific. And,
was he the director of the film?
He's a producer. He's Tab's longtime partner. It's actually directed by Jeffrey Schwartz, who has made several really great documentaries. He did I Am Divine a few years ago. Mm-hmm. He did Vito for HBO, and one on William Castle called Spine Tingler. He's done several really terrific films about figures in the entertainment industry.
See, my past is really coming out.
So to speak.
And so is Tab.
Well,
William Castle too.
No, I didn't.
Isn't he? Slam Dance, actually. Oh, no kidding. Yeah. No, actually, Reba was the original Tingler. That's that explains. He named it for her.
There's a lot of famous people in the films you're going to be showing this year. Is there a change happening because of all the publicity and that's happening? Gay marriage is legal, and Bruce Jenner is a girl. It's all over the place. Well, Does it affect what you do?
I mean, certainly. Outfest has been around for 33 years, and it started as a weekend-long program that some grad students at UCLA put together, and they screened, I think, 3 films. And so, obviously, over the years, as acceptance has grown in society, and as these stories have become more accessible to a mainstream audience, then the pool of the films that we can choose from gets larger and larger. I mean, just the number of scripts that are submitted every year for our screenwriting lab, is
just constantly growing. And the number of films that we as the programmers and our associate programmers dig through just from all the other festivals around the world, gay and straight, and just, kind of cold call, submissions. And we're definitely seeing a lot more of these stories being told.
Okay, but the thing is that this is Hollywood, so how about dropping some names? I love name dropping.
Sure. Well, we're opening with the documentary Tig, which is about the comedian Tig Notaro, who you may have seen on the Sarah Silverman program. Sarah Silverman is in the film along with Zach Galifianakis and a lot of other high-profile LA comedy folks. We are screening a great documentary about gays in sports called Out to Win, which really kind of follows the decades of progress that have been being made in the United States as far as LGBT athletes being able to compete openly. So, Billie Jean King is interviewed in the film, and Martina Navratilova, Dave Kopay, not Jason Isaacs. I'm always getting his name wrong. Michael Sam. A lot of folks like that. One of our international centerpiece films is called Eisenstein in Guanajuato, and it's directed by the great international filmmaker Peter Greenaway, who's going to be in attendance, which is great. Kristen Wiig stars in our U.S. centerpiece, Nasty Baby. We have the world premiere of Jenny's Wedding, which stars Katherine Heigl and Alexis Bledel and Tom Wilkinson. We are also world premiering a film called Naomi and Eli's No Kiss List with Victoria Justice from Nickelodeon. There's a lot. And Tab Hunter, of course, is going to be there. And since it is Tab's birthday, he has invited a lot of his celebrity friends to attend. And tell
me about Deep Run, because that has a very interesting executive producer.
Yes, Susan Sarandon is the executive producer of Deep Run. I think at some point in the process, the filmmakers came to her and she was really compelled by the story. It's about a young trans man coming of age in the South. And actually Cole, the subject of the film, he's kind of spending the month with Outfest. We've been taking him out and taking him to events and out to clubs and stuff, and he's been hanging out with different staff members and people that work with the festival. He will be at the screening. There's it's an amazing event. So it's a week and a half of screenings, and we have so many filmmakers in attendance and so many functions with them that people can go to, and so you guys were talking before about networking. If you want to talk to the people who have made that next step and they've made that short film and they've made that feature, or they're producers or they're cinematographers or whatever, you're going to find them at Outfest.
Well, you know what I did find? I found you in the green room when we were talking, and I asked you if the thing from the Supreme Court affected you one way or the other, because I think you were wearing a wedding ring. And you told me that...
Yeah, I have a long story on that one. My husband and I have been together since 1995. We'll be hitting our 20th anniversary this fall. In 1997, we thought, all right, we're not realistically expecting that marriage equality is going to be a thing that happens in our lifetime. It'll happen one day in this country, in the way that, who knows, maybe one day we'll have a black president, but, certainly not while we're alive. So, we're just going to go ahead and do this ceremony that we want, even though it has no legal standing whatsoever. So friends and family came from around the world to Dallas in July. That is a level of commitment right there, to see us sort of, get fake married to each other. And, we dressed up, we registered at Crate and Barrel, we did the whole 9 yards. Then we moved here in 1999 and became West Hollywood domestic partners. And then in 2000, we became California domestic partners when that became a thing statewide. And that actually carried a little more weight. In 2004, we schlepped up to San Francisco to get married when Gavin Newsom was doing the marriage licenses. That one got annulled. We got a refund check in the mail for our license, all that stuff. Then in 2008, when the California Supreme Court decided that the Gavin Newsom weddings should have been able to take place, we got married what we call for real at that point. And that was a very, we basically told our friends to meet us at the La Brea Tar Pits at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Our roommate, who had been ordained online, read our vows out of an iPhone, and then we all went to Bob's Donuts. Then Prop 8 happened. We remained married, but there was that weird limbo where other people in California couldn't get married. And so, now with the Supreme Court handing this down, this thing that we didn't think was going to happen in our lifetime happened within a 20-year window. So, progress will sneak up on you sometimes.
Is it a different feeling, this kind of approval from the Supreme Court, than, say, the Dallas wedding at
Well, I mean, it's nice, and beyond ourselves, obviously, we realize it's a huge thing for society in general and for people all over the country. It's nice to know that if for whatever crazy reason we wound up living in Texas, where we met, or Georgia, where I'm from, that we would still be married. It was a big deal a couple of years ago when they overturned DOMA and we started, filing federal taxes together. That's when you're really married. So yeah, it's exciting to see that change is made. The great work continues, as they say in Angels in America. We still have a lot to fix in terms of workplace discrimination and trans equality and all that kind of stuff. But, I think we have to celebrate the victories as they come, and this is definitely a victory for us.
So I do believe that it brings us to Outfest LA.
It does indeed. All roads lead to Outfest.
Because the thing is, all these movies have to somehow, maybe in a slow way, affect our culture and how people think.
Yeah, we're big believers in the power of LGBT storytelling to change society. That's really the focus of the organization. When Joe Biden says that, he turned around on gay marriage because of will and grace, you have to realize that these images really make an impact on people. And so Outfest kind of operates in a three-pronged assault, if you will, or an operational mandate. We look at it as that we're nurturing the next generation of filmmakers. Like I said, through our educational programs, we do a thing called Outset that's for young filmmakers 16 to 24, where we pair them with mentors and they make short films. We do a screenwriting lab. We do programs with filmmakers that are visiting the festival where they can meet with agents and managers. They can meet with studio people, that kind of thing. We showcase the films that exist now in the festival and in other programs throughout the year. And then we also preserve our sort of queer cinematic history with the UCLA Film and Television Archive. We have what's called the Outfest UCLA Legacy Project, which celebrates its 10th anniversary this year. We have the largest library in the world of LGBT titles. We have been restoring films that would otherwise be lost. A lot of the films that sort of make up our history here aren't owned by major studios. They aren't making anybody any money. They're rotting away in somebody's attic. And so we're very proactively collecting these films, storing these films, restoring these films. At the moment, we're in the middle of a huge project to restore a film from the 19-teens. It's a German film that's considered to have the first LGBT protagonist, called Different from the Others. And it was butchered by the Nazis. We've been finding clips of it, and we've been working with original screenplays to kind of restore this film to its full glory.
Well, there's so much to talk about, and I guess for people to get all of it, you need to go to Outfest LA.
Yes.
Which you can get more information and tickets and learn more about the organization at outfest.org.
Mm-hmm.
That's outfest.org. You can also follow everybody on Twitter at Outfest or hashtag OutfestLA if you want to follow the festival. You're on Instagram at Outfest. You're on Facebook. And it's really been a joy. So with that, we got it. We're going to cut to commercial. But again,
we're going to raise our glasses to you and to Joel. Alonso and Joel, thank you for making this a half hour. Oh, I think we're on for an hour.
Yeah.
It just felt like half an hour.
It went so fast.
And again, thank you to our sponsors, Conundrum Wine and Barkeepers Silver Lake.
Cheers.
Conundrum has been turning winemaking on its head for 25 years. Conundrum White is the original white wine blend from California. Pair this exotic, versatile wine with everything from Asian cuisine to tacos. Conundrum Red is rich, full-flavored, and balanced, the perfect complement to dishes like pasta pomodoro, fajitas, and barbecue. Drink it slightly chilled, perfect for summer. You'll find Conundrum Red and White wines at your favorite restaurants, wine shops, or supermarket. Go to WagnerFamilyOfWine.com. Again, that's WagnerFamilyOfWine.com. Find your wine, find your adventure.
Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches is Reba Merrill's intriguing look at hidden Hollywood. Find out what movie stars are really like in this behind-the-scenes Hollywood tell-all. The story of Reba's extraordinary life interwoven with an insider's look at achieving fame and success in the entertainment industry. A must-read. Buy Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches at RebaMerrill.com, Amazon.com, or ask for it at fine bookstores. Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches. You'll love it.
Barkeeper in Silver Lake has the finest cocktail shakers and vintage glassware and barware from the mid-century to new. And let's not forget about Barkeeper's unique spirits, 150 different kinds of bitters, and their unique gifts. In fact, Barkeeper provided a lot of the vintage barware for Mad Men. barkeepersilverlake.com. Don't wait to visit their store or their website at barkeepersilverlake.com. It's your very own Barkeeper catalog for unique gifts.
Going behind the scenes with Hollywood's Power Players. Real Hollywood Live with Ben and Reba. Starts now.
All right, well, welcome back. Today we've got two amazing guests. We've got Joel and we've got Alonso, and we're going to get right back to them. But I want you to also remember that you can always see this episode and past episodes at youtube.com/Reba Merrill, on Film Festival Flicks. You can go to realhollywoodlive.com. We're also available on iTunes, on UBN Radio. But let's get back to our guests.
I know. I love these men. Joel, what did you get out of this little conversation we had with Alonso? Because you're straight and bald. And
Alonso.
Alonso, and he's gay with
he's
hair.
Not bald.
Well, and we both have balls, which we sort of touched on before. No pun intended.
As it were.
The actually very interesting, because I was just telling Alonso, I did not know about the Joe Biden Will and Grace scenario. So that's total news to me. And again, we were just saying, it goes back to the power of art to influence cultures and to change minds and to have people grow and have people think. So I love it.
I guess they should have showed it to Dick Cheney. It might have helped him through the transition a little bit more.
Well, that's the Cheneys are a whole other story. But no, that's why when a totalitarian power comes into play, the first thing they do is censor the artists. Right. When Milos Forman made The People versus Larry Flint, he talked a lot about how, having been in Czechoslovakia and seeing the Soviets come in, that he said they go after the pornographers first. And then that makes it okay to go after everybody else. And so that's why he really felt passionately about the Flint story.
Mm-hmm. And ironically, that's pretty tame by today's standards.
I don't know. Depends.
Except I did see Caligula, and I didn't think, I was like, 25-year-old porno, how bad could that be? Well, I was shocked.
It was a porno. It was Bob Guccione, and it was porn.
Every generation
with Helen Mirren and
John Gielgud.
Malcolm McDowell.
It was people who wish they could take their name off.
Every generation thinks they invented sex, but no, it's been around.
Has it really?
I want to interview you on my non-existent podcast, but we'll make it work.
What would you like to ask me, since you've got me right here?
Who didn't you sleep with? Now, by the way, it's not a disrespectful question. Well, it was just how you introduced it before.
As you guys said earlier, you have to hear a lot of no's before you get to yes.
Exactly right.
This was the 1960s, and I wanted to get married. And in those days, no one would even consider you for marriage unless they slept with you.
Right.
And my problem was that I liked them, but then I didn't like them, and then so I just kept going until I found my husband.
Can I sort of relate this? Because it does relate. I know that sounded like a really ballsy question, okay? And I didn't mean it that way. But I said it that way deliberately because, you look at eras and you look at art and you look at the 60s and you look at free love, you look at the 70s, which are volatile, and you can't judge or put judgment on actions from the 1960s in 2015 and so on. You just can't. And that goes with art and everything else. So, it's an interesting time. And you had mentioned, 20 years, didn't know you'd have a black president, didn't know, Supreme Court. It was all science fiction. So we have to take all this time into consideration. And that's why I asked you, because I sort of wanted to get your answer. Plus, you're a lot of fun. But I wanted to get the answer that you had in the sense that, time means everything.
It was really difficult to tell my mother because I was a virgin the first time around, and it was very difficult because I shouldn't. It's all in my book, so I don't know why I'm sitting here.
The other reason why I asked, because you wanted to charge me $10 as
Yes,
opposed to
for the
giving me a
book.
freebie.
It's the best $10 you've ever spent.
Apparently.
Well, we're talking about it. My book is called Nearly Famous because I was the only person in the room who wasn't famous. And I tell you the real tales from the Hollywood trenches, what life is like. What life is like in Hollywood. It's not as glamorous as everybody thinks. But Joel is going to agree with me. If you get the chance to grab the brass ring, it is the ride of a lifetime.
Well, if you missed the 70s, I'm going to throw a plug in here for an Outfest event. We're screening the director's cut of 54, which is, set in the heyday of Studio 54. And they actually, the filmmaker had to sort of do the Harvey Weinstein scissor hands routine the first time. So this year he went back and restored something like half an hour of footage to the film. It premiered at Berlin this year, and we're screening it at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which if you've never been there is a great place to see movies. It's a great outdoor venue.
And speaking of gay marriage, there was a film called An Ordinary Couple, which started...
we screened that.
Yeah, which Orrin and Bernardo started with their funeral.
Right.
Because they figured marriage would never happen, so they had their funeral first at Hollywood Forever, and then they got married later.
I love the way the world is changing. I mean, I'm the oldest one sitting in this room, and I have to tell you something. It's an eye-opening experience, and it's one that fills me with a great deal of pleasure and joy.
Well, the road of history is long, but it arcs toward justice.
And with that,
we
are
drink
out of
to
time.
you. Are we really out of time? God, we've had
we are. So it's been so much fun, but...
Well, wait a minute. I'm supposed to tell you who's here next week.
Okay, well, tell us.
Okay, we're going to have a director-screenwriter, Daniel Adams, and actress Courtney James Clark. She was in Jurassic World. I did see Jurassic World. I thought their effects were great. I'm not really big into those animals that eat people, but then again, that's how I started my career. The first movie I ever got job was for Cujo, and it wasn't. I drink to my men tonight.
Well, thank you.
Today.
And again,
thank you.
Thank you for our amazing sponsors, Conundrum Wine, Barkeeper Silver Lake,
Reba Merrill's book,
and Film Festival Flicks. We'll see you next week. And remember, lastly, Chronicles of Ara, go to rebamerrill.com/Chronicles of Ara to register to win your free autographed book. Thank you.
Real Hollywood Live with Ben and Reba.